I must admit, I even had thoughts of when I left prison of breaking back in, and I would be able to get her.
As a new search of the moors began, it seemed like the end of 20 years of torment for Keith Bennett's mother, Winnie.
Well, I thought, oh, I'm going to get to know about Keith and Pauline, you know. At least Keith, anyway. They actually found Pauline. All by an accident, because one of the detectives wanted to go and have a wee, and he went back and he found the spot where she was.
But after 6 months of intensive searching of Saddleworth Moor, the whereabouts of Keith remained a mystery, and still do so to this day.
And there's no way I'm going to forget that lad, because he's my flesh and blood, and I want him back. Until I get him back, I'll be no different. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel about it. Till I get his body back, I'll never rest. If I've got to die, I'll die with a broken heart if I don't find him.
In 1987, public outcry followed Hindley's confession to her part in the 5 murders, and her chances of parole were seriously damaged. She had to continue her bid for freedom by addressing not only her crimes, but also the motivations behind them. It was counsellor Joe Chapman's task to pick up the pieces.
What she wanted most of all from it was to, she said, to find the answer why. She knew how she'd got involved with Brady, I mean, that's been recorded. But she wanted to know why, apart from the obvious, you know, the love affair that developed, why the crimes.
The bit that I wonder is the bit between her and Ian. There's extraordinary, intense, and in some sense there were demonic aspects of this relationship. Did she ever fully divulge or disclose her experience of that? I don't know.
In the end, I got to understand that what was happening between the two of them was powerful. There was a sadomasochistic element to it. There was almost a Bonnie and Clyde sort of thing going on there at one time. And she did describe that the sex sessions between them in between the crimes were more powerful for her, so that the situation that was developing as it went along was, as she's described in one of the letters to me, was knowing that they were bonded together with the blood of the victims.
Counselling was beginning to provide an insight into Hindley's relationship with Brady at the time of the murders. But all these years on, it was no comfort to the families of the victims. Hindley had now been locked away for over 25 years. She was about to start another love affair, and this one would end in marriage.
Nina was not long on the scene before I started to suspect that something was not altogether savoury, shall we say.
Incredibly, Hindley had got involved with a prison official again, criminologist Nina Wilde.
She looked, this is going to sound terrible, but she looked to me unearthly like Ian Brady with a mop top.
Although they tried to hush up things, you know, we knew what was happening, and obviously she only really went for butch women, Myra, that looked like men. Do you know what I mean?
And then, over a period of the next couple of months, then, yes, I discovered that things were going deeper, and that Myra and Nina had formed a relationship, and they were lovers.
There were rumours of a secret wedding ceremony conducted in the Cookham Wood Prison Chapel.
We use the word marriage when it comes to the blessing of the rings, I think I've called it. There were rings. Nina had a ring, Myra had a ring, and they were blessed. But yeah, I saw a commitment between the two of them.
But just like the affair with prison officer Pat Cairns at Holloway, the forbidden relationship had to end.
She was absolutely devastated when Nina was asked to leave the prison. Even though I said to her, look, you can see what's happened here now. She's got to go. There's no way she can carry on working in a prison with a relationship that's developed between you. She couldn't see it. She could not see that what had happened to her was just at all.
There was worse to come. For years, the victims' relatives had led a heartbreaking public campaign to keep Hindley inside for life. In 1994, they were victorious when Home Secretary Michael Howard delivered the crushing blow to Hindley. Public opinion was now to be taken into account when it came to her parole. For Hindley, there would be no forgiveness or release, ever.
Myra never used the word forgiveness. Not all the time that I was with her. She didn't look for forgiveness. She hoped that somewhere in all of this that people would live and let live. I don't think for 1 minute she felt that she was going to be forgiven for some of the stuff.
I've not the slightest doubt about her remorse, her sadness about it. But society didn't want her to be remorseful. You cannot be remorseful. You cannot be sorry. We're not going to allow you to be like that. Because if we allow you to be like that, it just may be that you're human. It may be that there are bits of you that are real and you're a human being. There actually is one Home official said to me, but she seduced you. And I said, your difficulty is you've had your head too long in the record, reading what's written as opposed to looking at the person that you're talking about. And that's the truth of it.
For 56-year-old Hindley, the final blow had come with a decision to send her back to H Wing in Durham Prison, where she spent her darkest days 2 decades earlier. This fellow inmate recalls the broken woman she met in 1998.
She was not as robust as I thought she might have been. She was absolutely a changed woman. She was an invalid on sticks. Often she looked a bit spaced out. Maybe she'd got her hands on some cannabis or things like that, or other people's tablets. So that's how she coped with her prison life.
Hindley's decline was not just physical, but mental too.
She used to accumulate things in her cell. If there was any extra food left after they'd served the meals, Myra always wanted the extra food, and she may not eat it, but she'd accumulate it in her cell. And she wasn't really clean. It never seemed to get a thorough cleaning. So there was a funny smell about the cell, a really funny smell about the cell that I noticed.
By now, even the prison authorities could see Hindley's condition worsening.
The health certainly was declining when she left H Wing. She went to another prison, High Point, and she certainly wasn't very well then. After 30 years in jail, believe you me, her life wasn't pleasant, and so she lived with the consequences of what she did.
By 2000, Hindley was approaching 60 and suffering from heart and lung disease. The move to High Point Prison in Suffolk would be her last.
I always said to Myra, I said, you will die one day. I said, whether it's us that get to you first, you will be dead.
But 36 years in jail hadn't killed Myra Hindley's spirit yet.
But she didn't want to die in prison. She wanted freedom. She wanted it so badly.
For Hindley, now convinced she was a political prisoner, the hardest struggle was to come. After 32 years behind bars, Myra Hindley was moved to High Point Prison in Suffolk. She still hadn't given up her fight for release, and by the 1990s had taken her bid for freedom to the European Court of Human Rights. This time the outcome looked hopeful. Reverend Michael Teder was part of her support team.
We worked to try to sort out what would happen to her and where she could go. Maybe to a convent, maybe to sheltered accommodation, maybe to other groups of people who, in fact, would be able for her to live as a supported member of a community.